I am her unforgettable first love. Yet right in front of me, she accepted another man's proposal. While I lay dead in a dark, damp rental room, she wore her wedding dress and walked arm in arm with Robert into the church. On the honeymoon flight, she calmly turned off the news reporting my death. But back in her apartment, she cried bitterly. "Jack, come back." "Miriam, we can't go back." After Miriam and I got together, we became a legend at school. The story of a wealthy girl falling in love with a poor boy made everyone envious. On her 25th birthday, I planned to propose. I should have been the protagonist of that proposal, but instead, I became a bystander. Because the man Miriam always wanted to marry had already become her fiancé. Every year we were together, Miriam celebrated her birthday twice. Once for social obligations with high society, and once just for the two of us. While I was decorating the proposal venue in my rental apartment, Miriam, dressed in an elegant gown, walked into a private 5-star hotel. 5 hours later, the venue was finally ready. Sitting on the floor, I imagined how Miriam would look when she said yes. A smile slowly spread across my face. Ding! The sound of my phone shattered my daydream. Someone attending a company banquet had an emergency, and I was called in as a replacement. I put on the suit I had prepared for the proposal and drove to the hotel hosting the banquet. "Jack, you made it." Sandra greeted me with a bear hug. She was a senior colleague I met during my internship, highly capable and known as the company's prodigy. Perhaps because we shared similar backgrounds, Sandra and I had grown close. After a bit of small talk, she began assigning tasks. The goal was to promote the company's services and build relationships with clients. Thinking about my proposal later that night, I wanted to finish my work quickly. Walking into the banquet hall, I was struck by its luxury. I grabbed a glass of champagne and went straight to the target clients. Conversations flowed, toasts were exchanged, and I moved smoothly from one group to another. A sharp pain suddenly hit my stomach, making me break into a light sweat, but I still picked up a glass of white wine, ready to wrap things up. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. A spotlight lit up the stairs on the second floor. Soft piano music filled the hall, and Miriam appeared under the light. It was her birthday party. For a moment, I thought she was walking toward me. It felt like the entire hall contained only the two of us. Under the dim light, with her stunning dress, delicate makeup, and sweet smile, she looked flawless. Instinctively, I reached into my pocket for the ring. The cold hardness snapped me back to reality. A man holding a large bouquet of roses appeared in the center of the hall. Miriam's smile grew brighter as she hurried down the stairs toward him. He pulled out a ring and knelt. "Miriam, marry me." Cheers and applause erupted. I stood frozen, my mind racing. Miriam covered her mouth, tears of joy in her eyes. This was the moment I had dreamed of countless times. And now it was happening right in front of me, just not with me. "I will." Her familiar, clear voice pierced straight through my heart, just like that summer smile from years ago. I set down my glass and fled. But as I was leaving, someone called out to stop me. "Jack, aren't you staying to wish us well?" Miriam's melodic voice echoed through the hall. I had no choice but to turn around. The cheers faded, and the guests' gazes swept over me. Miriam smiled politely, took Robert's hand, and walked toward me. I clenched my fists, my heart in turmoil. "Jack, my college classmate," she introduced. "Robert, my fiancé." I had never attended any of her birthday parties before. I had never seen this version of her, polite, elegant, distant. I looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar Miriam, my emotions tangled. I didn't know what expression I wore, but I knew she wanted her day to end perfectly. Suppressing the pain in my abdomen, I extended my hand. "Mr. Wang, I've heard a lot about you." Robert sneered and ignored my hand. It hung awkwardly in the air. "So you're Jack. Thanks for taking care of Miriam all these years." His tone dripped with superiority. I knew then that he understood everything. I looked at Miriam, but she stood beside him, petite and delicate, indifferent to my silent plea. I withdrew my gaze. "Then I'll leave her in your care, Mr. Wang." "I'll naturally take better care of her than you, a country bumpkin," Robert said, patting my shoulder. "By the way, you're quite temperamental. Do you know how you got your job?" Whispers spread around us. I frowned, confused. I had earned that position myself, through every test, every interview. Getting into that company was my pride. Miriam arranged it, Robert scoffed. Otherwise, do you really think you could beat overseas graduates? Miriam finally spoke, not to defend me, but to mock me. Stop crushing his spirit. For people with humble origins, all they have left is their pitiful pride. That sentence echoed endlessly in my ears. Someone had said those words before, but back then, Miriam defended me. On my first day at university, I was the odd one out in the dorm. They had the latest Apple products. I had an old phone. Their sneakers were limited editions. My clothes cost 35 yuan. When a roommate lost money, I became the suspect. I endured the sarcasm. Until another accusation exploded in public. When chaos broke out, Miriam arrived and stood in front of me. She recorded everything and demanded proof. She turned their words back on them. Eventually, the truth came out. She shone brightly that day. "Don't be afraid," she said. "I've got your back." Time changes everything. The person who once protected me now used the same words to humiliate me. I picked up a glass of wine. "Today is your special day. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness." I drank it all and left. The moment the door closed, tears fell uncontrollably. Back in my apartment, moonlight illuminated the proposal I had prepared. The roses lay at my feet. My ring, a 3-carat diamond, sparkled faintly. I laughed at myself. We were never equals. This ending was inevitable. The pain in my stomach grew unbearable. I passed out. I dreamed of summer. Cicadas. A girl under an umbrella smiling at me. Jack. When I woke up, I was on the cold floor. My phone was silent. Miriam hadn't returned. I made coffee. It tasted unbearably bitter. I packed my suitcase. When Miriam opened the door, I said nothing. "I'm leaving this place." "Leaving you?" She laughed coldly. "We were never going to get married. Behave yourself." That shattered everything. "I've quit my job," I said. "I'm leaving you." She cried, clung to me. "Stay." I opened the ring box. "This is the engagement ring I prepared. If you agree to marry me, I'll stay." Her sobbing stopped instantly, but she still didn't answer. It was only a casual test, yet the answer was already clear. I sneered. "What's wrong?" "Don't want to." Without waiting for her reply, I placed the ring down. "If you're not willing to marry me, then as for staying by your side, I'm not willing either." I raised my voice. "Miriam, we're even." She shook her head over and over before collapsing onto the couch. After the heavy door shut, the room fell completely silent. Only the bug hidden at Miriam's waist continued flashing. A month later, in a dark and damp rental room, I lay quietly on the bed. Today was Miriam's wedding day. Sunlight streamed in through the window, and I imagined how beautiful she must look in her wedding dress. On the simple table lay a medical report and a bottle of sleeping pills. Years of hard work had only brought me 4 words: pancreatic cancer. Sunlight flooded the church as Miriam, dressed in a luxurious wedding gown, walked arm in arm with Robert toward the pastor. She was finally getting what she had always wanted. At the same time, I drifted into a deep sleep. On her honeymoon flight, Miriam received the news of my death. Her eyelashes trembled, and the fingers gripping her phone turned pale. Sensing something was wrong, Robert looked up and asked, "What's wrong?" Miriam calmly turned off her phone and smiled. "Nothing. Just spam." In that brief moment, a trace of coldness flickered through her eyes. I knew she regretted it. But by then, I no longer cared. If you don't cherish someone while they're alive, then no amount of affection after their death means anything. Sandra handled my funeral. We had been close friends. She spared no expense, choosing an excellent burial site. Perhaps it was heaven's mercy. On the day I was laid to rest, it rained. In the distance, I saw a vague silhouette that looked a lot like Miriam. But she should have been on her honeymoon. How could she be there? After I died, Miriam lived 2 different lives. By day, she was the decisive and ruthless head of the company. At night, She became the gentle and virtuous daughter-in-law of the Wang family. The Wang elders disliked her strong business persona, so on weekends she returned to the apartment to handle work. Only there, an apartment that had once been ours, could she truly be herself. Hours later, Miriam closed her laptop and stretched lazily. Finally done. The excitement in her voice was obvious. She must have completed an important project. As usual, after stretching, she shouted, "Jack, pour me a good drink so I can celebrate." Before she finished speaking, her voice gradually lowered. In the past, I would have answered from the living room, "Sure thing, coming right up." Then, like a waiter, I'd bring her a glass, and she'd laugh every time. But now, the apartment was silent. She glanced toward the quiet living room and realized I was no longer there. Quickly regaining her composure, she walked to the liquor cabinet and poured herself a glass of whiskey. Holding the glass, she stepped onto the balcony and looked at the wilting begonias. Those begonias were her favorite flowers. After she brought them home, caring for them became my responsibility. That had once sparked an argument. "Aren't I your girlfriend?" "Yes." "Shouldn't you take care of your girlfriend?" "Yes." "Aren't begonias my favorite flower?" "Yes." "Then shouldn't you help take care of them too?" "Yes." Only after agreeing to everything did I realize I had been tricked, but the camera had already captured the moment. We both laughed, and watering the begonias became part of my daily routine. Now, looking back on those sweet memories, I could no longer tell whether Miriam had truly been happy or merely pretending. Staring at the withered flowers, she blurted out, "Jack, what's wrong with you?" "The begonias have withered." After speaking, she turned toward the living room and froze. She watered the flowers herself. Then, humming softly, she headed into the kitchen. It seemed as if my death hadn't affected her at all. The vegetables she had prepared earlier were already waiting. She set down her drink and skillfully heated the pan. As usual, she began ordering me around. "Jack, bring the vegetables over." But the only sounds in the empty kitchen were her own voice and the sizzling oil. She hesitated, then calmly sprinkled the chopped scallions into the pan, only to be splashed by hot oil. "Jack." In pain, she instinctively called my name. The room remained silent. Realizing I would never rush out to tend to her again, Miriam turned off the stove and walked out of the kitchen, enduring the pain alone. In the cramped apartment, Miriam sat motionless on the sofa. More than a month had passed, yet everything remained exactly as it was when I left. The proposal setup was untouched. Rose petals formed a path. Silver balloons covered the walls. Even the diamond ring remained in its original place. The room gradually darkened. Miriam sat there like a statue, unmoving. Her expression was calm, devoid of sadness. And why would she grieve? A woman who had abandoned me so heartlessly couldn't possibly mourn me. Perhaps she was only filled with regret, regret for calling out to me during the proposal, regret for not continuing to act in front of me, regret most of all for losing someone as obedient as I had been, a backup she could always rely on. My departure was like lingering dampness after a rainstorm, and Miriam trudged through the mud. She sat there for who knows how long until moonlight seeped into the living room. Finally, she stirred, stood up, and opened a drawer, pulling out a camera. Photos and videos of our daily life flickered across the screen, frame by frame. Miriam silently covered her face, tears of regret slipping through her fingers. Snap! The dim room suddenly lit up as Robert appeared in the doorway. Shock filled Miriam's face. "What are you doing here?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward and snatched the camera from her hands. The sweet sounds coming from it irritated him. Frowning, he questioned harshly, "Is this what you call business?" Forgetting to wipe her tears, Miriam stood up and tried to grab the camera back. Robert shoved her to the ground. "Give it back." She struggled up and tried again, but her small frame was no match for him, and she was pushed down once more. Robert's gaze landed on the diamond ring on the table. He opened the box, examined the ring I had prepared, and burst into laughter. "Is this all it takes for you to be heartbroken for this long?" He threw the camera to the floor, blocking Miriam as she tried to save it. "Come on, Miriam. It's been a month. You've played this dramatic love scene long enough." Seeing the hatred and despair in her eyes, he suddenly pulled her into his arms and declared, "Miriam, I love you. No matter what you feel for Jack, you're Mrs. Wang now, my wife." Miriam shoved him away and slapped him hard across the face. "Get out. You don't deserve to say his name." Robert froze for a moment, then slammed the door and left. Miriam seemed unfazed by the threat she had just issued. Once he was gone, she rushed to the camera and checked it frantically. No matter how many times she tried to turn it on, the screen stayed dark, just like me now, lifeless. Overwhelmed, Miriam finally broke down. "It's my fault. I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jack, I don't want anything anymore. Come back. Please, just come back." Miriam, the only daughter of the Lee family corporation, had always been capable and self-sufficient. No matter what happened, she was rational and composed. I had never seen her so out of control. But no matter how loudly she begged, the room remained silent. In the past, the moment tears welled in her eyes, no matter how unreasonable her demands were, I would soften before a single tear fell and agree to everything. But now, despite her sobbing and pleading, all I could see was foolishness born of emptiness and loneliness. Half an hour later, the crying stopped. Miriam washed her face and picked up a photo of us, studying it carefully. "Jack, you'll understand me." She placed the frame back carefully, aligning it perfectly. Then she packed the camera into her bag and left the apartment, turning off the lights behind her. She also took the engagement ring from the table. The once clean table was left with only a set of investigation documents. On the first page was a photo of a young Miriam. But the name on it was Lara. Lara, female. From Nan County. Nan County, that was my hometown. My memory drifted back to the day I first met Miriam. It was the first day of university. I was carrying a shabby bag, pushing through the crowd to find the registration desk. A senior greeted me warmly and helped me with the paperwork. "Nan County. You're from Nan County." I put down my pen. A bright girl stood in front of me. "Hi, I'm Miriam." That was the first time we met. In the days that followed, I often thought back to that moment, Miriam standing radiant in the sunlight, like a beam of light piercing my dark, cramped life. But when I finally stepped out of the shadows, she was already gone. Back then, as long as she was by my side, her praises echoed in my ears. "Jack, you're amazing. You're just like me." At the time, I thought she was simply flattering herself. Looking back now, maybe I really was another version of her. I realized I needed to understand that information. Sitting in the taxi, watching the familiar scenery pass by, I felt a strange sense of relief. Most people, when faced with despair, believe death is their only way out. I was no different. I really did swallow an entire bottle of sleeping pills and lie there in that dark, damp rental room, waiting for death. Scenes from my life flashed before my eyes, a life of hardship, ridicule, and a slow, painful climb toward success. I tried my best to live as an ordinary person struggling through hardship. But even the longest night eventually ends. My mother's comforting words, Miriam's smile, our mutual encouragement, these gradually overshadowed the darkness. In that moment, I became terrified of the death drawing near. Yet the pills had already taken effect. My consciousness faded, leaving me powerless to save myself. Tears filled my eyes as I desperately wished someone would find me before it was too late. But in that cheap rental, everyone was too busy with their own struggles to care about a stranger's life. In the final moments of my awareness, someone kicked the door open and rushed in. When I woke again, I was already in the hospital. Sandra sat beside my bed, working on her laptop. Hearing me stir, she turned around, her expression shifting from shock to joy. "You're awake. Are you thirsty? I'll get you some water." I nodded, watching her quietly. "The doctor said after having your stomach pumped, you can only drink warm water. I'll mix some for you. Let me know if you feel like eating later, though you're only allowed liquid food for now." She fussed non-stop. Warmth spread through my chest, bringing a sense of comfort. "How did I end up in that shared rental?" I asked. Sandra didn't stop mixing the water. "Don't you remember? I helped you find that place." Back then, I was still interning under her. The school was far from the company, so I wanted a cheap place to live. She recommended that rental. The conditions were awful, but it was close to both the company and the metro, and most importantly, it was cheap. Later, after saving some money, I moved out and rented a better apartment. Watching sunlight pour into the hospital room, I smiled softly. No one cherishes life more than someone who has died once. After staring at the pancreatic cancer diagnosis for a long time, I calmly shared my thoughts with Sandra. I want to continue treatment. She met my gaze, her voice steady and reassuring. Good. In the days that followed, she took me to multiple hospitals for further tests. The results shattered my expectations. I only had common gastritis, not late-stage pancreatic cancer. Looking at the diagnosis papers, I realized everything had been fake. The stamp was fake. The disease was fake. Even the doctor's name couldn't be traced. Under pressure from Sandra and me, the doctor finally confessed. It was Miriam. She asked me to do it. She's an investor in this hospital. I couldn't refuse. Hearing her name felt like plunging into an ice pit. She really wanted me dead. After leaving the hospital, Sandra and I sat in silence. After a long while, she asked, "What are you going to do?" I licked my dry lips. Let's give Miriam what she wants. I asked Sandra to spread the news of my death and arrange a fake funeral. To make it convincing, she even delivered condolence money to my mother in the countryside. I stayed in a house Sandra rented for me, focusing on treatment. The apartment should have been vacated long ago, yet Miriam kept paying the rent. Through surveillance footage, I watched her, working, spacing out, breaking down in tears. It gave me a sense of satisfaction. But when I saw those documents, an inexplicable urge surged within me, urging me to investigate. Standing outside the apartment, I took out the key I had planned to throw away. Click. Miriam hadn't changed the lock. I opened the door, cut off the power, and locked it behind me. After taking photos of the documents in their current state, I picked them up and began flipping through them. Inside were detailed records of Miriam's life over the past 10 years, from a little girl in a rural village in Nan County to the dramatic transformation into the daughter of the Lee family. Back then, Miriam was still called Lara. As a bone marrow match for the Lee family's daughter, Diana, Lara's parents received a large sum of money and sent her to the Lee household. But fate is unpredictable. The night before the transplant surgery, Diana's condition suddenly worsened, and despite emergency efforts, she passed away. That same night, a fire swept through Nan County, taking the lives of all of Lara's relatives. In the end, Lara naturally became the daughter of the Lee family. She was sent abroad at a young age for education, and only after growing up was she brought back to China and renamed Miriam. Nan County. A little girl. A great fire. Those words stirred a memory deep within me, of a girl I had once encountered briefly during my childhood. In rural areas, education wasn't valued, and there were always kids who didn't attend school lingering around the school gates, bullying those weaker than them. One day, I heard a girl crying from an empty alley. I paused, then shouldered my backpack and walked past. But the unease in my heart made me turn back. In the alley, a frail little girl was pinned to the ground by 3 people. Cigarette butts were scattered around her, and her arms were covered in burn marks. Fortunately, they were just bullies who preyed on the weak. After a short scuffle, they fled in embarrassment. I was roughed up a bit, but nothing serious. I helped the girl up, took her to the clinic for medicine, and escorted her home. Before I left, she tugged timidly at my shirt and asked, "Will they come back to get me?" I held her hand. "Don't worry. I've got your back." After that, she started waiting for me at the entrance of that alley. One day she asked, "Can you tell me your name?" I was puzzled but answered anyway. "Jack." She nodded and turned to leave, then paused, looked back, and said, "I'll remember you," before running off. The next time I passed by her house, it had already been reduced to ruins. Eventually, I left the mountains, and the memory of that girl slowly faded. Could Miriam be that frail girl? The doctor once said she had old scars and burns on her arms that would surely leave marks. But Miriam's skin was smooth and fair, without a trace of injury. I placed the documents back where they belonged and prepared to leave. Then Miriam's voice echoed behind me. "Are you ready to leave?" I froze for a moment, then moved to rush toward the door. Miriam was faster and blocked the exit. I was wrapped tightly, with only my eyes visible. She shouldn't have been able to recognize me. I kept my head down and tried to force the door open, but somehow she found the strength to hold me back. As we struggled, Miriam spoke. "Jack, how long are you going to hide?" Time seemed to stop. My hands dropped to my sides. Miriam pulled down my mask and hugged me tightly. "I knew it. I knew you weren't dead." Her tears soaked my shoulder. I gently pushed her away and said calmly, "Miriam, we're over." "No, there's more to it than you know." She stepped forward to grab my hand, but I avoided her and moved closer to the door. Seeing that I still intended to leave, she made one last attempt. "Do you remember the girl you saved?" "That was me." Those words stopped me. "Jack, there's more to the story than you know." After becoming Miriam, the Lee family treated her as their own daughter. She transformed from a weak rural girl into the eldest daughter of the Lee Corporation. After returning to China, she, like me, was accepted into a university. At first, she only wanted to stay by my side to repay me, but eventually she wanted to be with me. Even though I told her we could fight for a future together, years of luxury and privilege made it impossible for her to give up the wealth and comfort within reach. She wanted everything, wanted to hide it from me while marrying Robert. But Robert had already investigated her. The humiliation at the proposal was Robert's doing. He arranged for company staff to be absent from Miriam's birthday party and had someone remind Sandra that I was on leave that day. That was why I showed up at their engagement ceremony. When I turned to leave, Robert dragged Miriam toward me. Miriam called out to me, pretending to protect me, while helping Robert mock me to my face. The next day, Miriam came to see me, only to discover Robert had planted a listening device on her. She had no choice but to maintain the aggressive act, threatening and manipulating me. But after my death, she finally realized the truth. I mattered more to her than wealth and status. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at me. "Jack, can we start over?" I turned away with a sigh. "Miriam, no one waits in the same place forever. It's impossible for us now." When I stepped outside, Sandra was waiting by the door. She looked like she had been there for a while. "How did you know I was here?" She smiled and opened the car door. "Just a guess. Get in." I had long sensed that Sandra's feelings for me went beyond admiration between colleagues. That night, she cooked a huge meal to celebrate my recovery. She even opened a bottle of red wine. "Your stomach's finally better. You can eat whatever you want now." She raised her glass. "Cheers." To avoid Miriam, I had moved into Sandra's place. During my treatment, she had taken care of everything. The doctor strictly forbade spicy or heavy food. Sandra, a northern girl who loved spicy dishes, had eaten bland meals the entire time just for me. "It's your appetite that's finally free," I said, raising my glass. "Sandra, thank you for staying by my side. If it weren't for you, I might have died in that rental. You're my savior. If you ever need anything, just ask. I'll never say no." Cheers. After finishing her glass, Sandra's cheeks flushed. She poured another and looked at me seriously. "I have something to tell you. I've spent 3 years with you. You're strong but insecure, capable but proud. You get along with everyone, but no one truly lives in your heart. You understand your value and calculate carefully who benefits you and who doesn't. Your relationship with Miriam was the only greedy thing you ever allowed yourself. But Jack, the partner you need is someone who can stand beside you without doubt. In terms of ability, personality, and appearance, I'm the right choice. So I hope you'll consider me. You don't need to answer right away. I want a thoughtful answer, not a casual rejection. This toast is for myself." I watched her drink and felt my ears heat up. Her words had stripped me bare. She had laid everything on the table. That night, I lay awake as a soft breeze stirred the curtains. When morning came, despite not sleeping at all, I felt energized. Sandra stared at me, surprised. "Where are you going?" "Job hunting." "I've already eaten. The food on the table is yours. Don't forget to eat." I grabbed my documents and left. With my experience, I quickly found a new job. On my 3rd day, I was assigned a project. The client was Lee Enterprises. I hesitated, but Sandra encouraged me. Lee Enterprises is an industry leader. This project will benefit you enormously. In business, maximizing benefit is the eternal rule. Jack, I believe you can separate emotions from work." She was right. The project progressed smoothly. I tried to avoid Miriam, but eventually we crossed paths. "Long time no see, Jack." Miriam sat at the head of the table, calm and composed. I adjusted my jacket and sat down confidently. "Ms. Lee, long time no see. Our last collaboration wasn't pleasant, but I'll give my all this time." The meeting went smoothly. During the break, Miriam cornered me in the bathroom. "I didn't expect you to be doing so well," she said. "Ms. Lee, you flatter me." She blocked my way. "If you really don't care, why are you still wearing that tie?" It was the tie she gave me for my 20th birthday. It had helped me secure my first internship. "Miriam," I said calmly, "I wear this tie to commemorate my first success. If it's caused any misunderstanding, I can return it." I untied it and placed it in her hand. "Wait a moment before going out." That evening, I found the tie on the table again. Sandra said, she asked me to return it. Said she's not petty enough to take back a gift. After dinner, Sandra took out the game controllers and started setting them up. Most guys love games. I do too. Miriam never did. To accommodate her, I deleted all my games and sold my controllers. She had been raised as an heir, and her idea of entertainment was limited to golf and equestrian activities. Video games held no appeal for her. She didn't even like watching me play. In her eyes, anyone who played video games was wasting their life. If developing games hadn't been profitable, I doubted Miriam would have ever allowed the Lee Corporation to enter the industry at all. Sandra, however, was different. She wasn't obsessed with gaming, but she accepted my love for it. She even took the initiative to learn different strategies so we could play together. As a beginner, her moves often made me laugh, but she didn't mind at all. She just played happily, enjoying the process. After finishing the dishes, I wiped my hands and walked into the living room. The moment she saw me, Sandra called out excitedly, "Come over here. I'll show you a new move I just learned. It'll definitely impress you." I picked up the controller and teased her, saying, "All right, show me what you've got, hero." Outside, the evening was quiet and peaceful, but inside the house, laughter filled the air. Downstairs, Miriam stood beneath the streetlight, looking up at the brightly lit balcony. Her eyes were full of longing. She didn't look away until the lights in the house finally went out. She kicked a small pebble at her feet, tears streaming down her face. With a sigh, she turned and walked away. After that night, Miriam never contacted me again. On the day the project ended, I received a message on my phone. "I'm divorced. Let's meet." There was no name, only a phone number, but I knew immediately that it was from Miriam. I turned off my phone and continued working. At lunch, a colleague casually mentioned that Miriam had divorced. I pretended to be surprised while everyone else discussed it endlessly. I just listened. I didn't reply to her message, but I still ended up seeing her in the parking lot later that day. "Your manager didn't have any documents for you," she said. "I asked him to call you down." As I got into her car, she spoke calmly. "Jack, I'm divorced." "I heard," I replied. "When things reached this point, I began to regret it," she said. "When I married Robert, deep down I believed it was because the marriage alliance would strengthen the Lee Corporation. I'm not the Lee family's biological daughter, but they treated me well, and I felt I needed to repay them. But later, I realized it was actually my own choice." She continued softly, "People always weigh the pros and cons. Whether it's a man or a woman, we all choose what benefits us the most. But sometimes, what's beneficial isn't what's right. Jack, I made the wrong choice." She paused before going on. "Only when I'm with you do I not need to wear a mask. Only then do I feel like my true self. Don't worry, I'm not here to cling to you. I just wanted closure today. To be more precise, I'm saying goodbye to my past self. After today, I'll fully return to being Miriam of the Lee family. Goodbye, Jack." As her car slowly drove out of the parking lot, I called out after her, "Goodbye, Miriam." Time passed quickly, and before I knew it, a year had gone by. On the last day of the year, I took the day off. When Sandra came home from work, she was greeted by me holding a bouquet of flowers. Her eyes filled with tears like a schoolgirl's, yet her face was glowing with joy. As the New Year's bells rang, we stood on the balcony. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder as we watched the brilliant fireworks light up the sky. We raised our glasses together. Happy New Year! Happy New Year! When the fireworks faded, I leaned in and whispered, "I'm so lucky to have you by my side." Sandra smiled and looked up at me. "I'm lucky you didn't miss me." Jack had been the new intern at the company, much like I had been when I first started. Ambitious, hard-working, and carrying a faint trace of pride. Maybe it was because of our similar backgrounds and personalities, but I admired him. I had heard that he came recommended by Miriam, which gave me a slight bias against him. Those who climb up on their own naturally resent people who advance through connections. But as time went on, I realized Jack was sincere and didn't put on airs. On the day of Miriam's birthday party, I had called him in at the last minute. That night, however, I witnessed one of the most humiliating moments of his life. I couldn't help but feel partly responsible for his embarrassment. Afterward, Jack resigned. I tried to persuade him to stay, but he was resolute. Reluctantly, I approved his resignation. Worried that he might harm himself, I contacted him every day. Then, on the day of Miriam's wedding, he disappeared. I searched frantically but found nothing. Eventually, I remembered the cheap rental apartment. After running around in circles, I finally found him unconscious. When I saw the diagnosis, pancreatic cancer, I felt overwhelming sorrow. Fortunately, Jack said he was willing to seek treatment. I took him to several hospitals, and eventually the diagnosis was corrected from pancreatic cancer to gastritis. It felt like a heavy weight had been lifted from my chest. Jack, however, chose to go along with the mistake. He asked me to pass the news of his death to Miriam and even helped plan his funeral. To make it convincing, I went to the countryside to visit his mother. During those few days, I learned a great deal about Jack's past. He had once been a gentle, sweet boy. Later, for reasons I still didn't understand, he disappeared again. I drove to his old apartment and waited. After some time, Miriam arrived as well. At that moment, I was certain Jack was inside. When he finally came out alone, I couldn't describe the happiness that surged inside me. I knew I liked Jack. But as adults, we keep our feelings carefully hidden. I pretended to remain calm as I opened the car door. That night, fueled by a bit of alcohol, I finally confessed my feelings. I didn't give Jack the chance to respond immediately, but I already knew he would choose me, because I was the one he needed. Jack didn't want to take on the project with Lee Enterprises, but it was crucial for his future development. I knew he simply hadn't figured out how to face Miriam. Learning to weigh the pros and cons is a lesson every adult must learn, so I encouraged him to accept the project. On the day Jack went to Lee Enterprises for the meeting, Miriam came to find me. We had an open conversation. When she left, she handed me a tie. I think she understood then that she no longer had any chance. In truth, I didn't care about their past. But during that conversation, I learned a secret. The pancreatic cancer diagnosis had been arranged by Robert. I didn't tell Jack. By that point, their misunderstanding had gone far beyond a simple medical report. Jack and I spent some time together without Miriam in the picture. On New Year's Eve, Jack surprised me in a way I hadn't expected. As I had predicted, Jack chose me, but that didn't make me any less happy. As the New Year's bells rang, Miriam turned and left from outside. I watched Jack, completely immersed in the joy of the moment. I knew that this new year marked the beginning of something entirely new for us.